was our fantasy leader, actually. It's not that big of a surprise. Kikis is standing tall as a fantasy point leader for the day, picking up 9 kills and 9 assists for a total of 34 points. However, you guys signaled, maybe it's a weakness, the fact that he has only been going to those tanks. I feel like it's something that he would be able to do, because even in the jungle, he pulled out the crazy carry pick. So
I mean, he plays the tanks fine, and it works well for G2. I just think, looking back at the game, I feel if that game gets played out like 5 times, yeah, 1 or 2, G2 hangs on in the early game, but the other 3 or 4 times, they just crumble, lose all their turrets, and then Malphite's useless. That's kind of the difference between Malphite, what we saw in the G2 game, versus the one in Origin. If you get pressured in so much, your engages are so obvious that it becomes very hard to force, but he did perform well. The only other critique we had was the Spirit Visage. I don't know if you guys watched the game, like why he built Spirit Visage.
Well, he was in it.
Third, I don't know.
I mean, I have no clue why he went for that build. I think maybe faster Tormail would be better, or like more like tank items for like armor. But I think he played pretty well the game, and even though Trick helped him quite a lot in the early game, I feel like he was a big reason why we lost this game. And if we wouldn't let him play Malphite, I think the game could look way different. So I'm looking forward to see more of my Polish Freund, you know, and maybe he will pull off something more interesting than just tanks.
We will see. And outside of the fantasy land of fantasy points, we've picked 5 heavy hitters that brought their best to the stage in week 5. First up is Nukeduck with a 16 KDA for vitality and fantastic performance. Jankos, I know you guys are really good friends.
Yeah, we are really good friends. I mean, kinda, you know, we banter each other a lot. I think Nukeduck is like a great player. I mean, if this guy gets help, like he just smashed everyone. And pick like GP or Zilan is perfect for him, just because he can kind of farm the early game and then do stuff around the map. And yeah, like he's a great team fighter. His mechanics are on point, and I think at some point Vitality could be the best team just because of this guy.
I definitely think it's worth for fans for Nukeduck and Jankos to just follow them on Twitter, because there's a couple of shots being fired. Nukeduck actually said today that he loves playing supportive champions because he finally has a jungler that can carry. You know. Yeah,
I mean. If my mid lane hacks turret for like 20 minutes every game, every single game, then it's hard for me to actually invade them in jungle, you know. That's why Ryu is like a blessing.
Yeah. I mean, on that, in general, it's been 2 weeks now with Selfie. So how have you guys been adapting? How do you think it's been better this week? Because Selfie actually is putting up a really good score in these games.
I think Selfie is pretty good, yeah. I mean, I think that his pressure and his roam are not as on point as Ryu's. But overall, I think he's a great player, and I think if he goes to EcoFox or stay with us for like a couple of more weeks, I think he can become like one of the greater mid laners. And as for now, he's performing. Like, I think we wouldn't find a better sub than Selfie right now. I think he's really good.
All right, let's take a look at another mid laner who we thought did really well, or is doing quite well this split. It is Fox for the Unicorns of Love. There was some discussion, though, about how good he's doing in these games, but he is racking up the wins, and I feel like he's just having more of an influence than I've seen him have in the summer of 2015.
I mean, for me, it's hard to judge because I don't really think he's like performing that great, but it seems like, yeah, 34% of like team damage, and overall against us, he didn't have much pressure, but like he delivered today. So yeah, I think he's improving quite a lot. I think it's nice to watch him.
He just understands his role, I think, within the Unicorns, and I think he shines when everybody else is working well. But then he just contributes a lot. In a lot of these team fights, he was just doing exactly what he needed to do. You know, go aggressive, put the ultimate down, not afraid to play with his team. And I think the Unicorns' strength right now is more their synergy rather than just individual players, and that is something surprising to say about the Unicorns if you compare it to the past. Yeah.
Very good for them. Someone else in our OP list, we actually talked about him a lot of times already. Kiki's 18 KDA versus H2K, and just in general, a lot of good stuff. But let's move on to a teammate of his, Emperor, if only for the Q steal on Baron.
I mean, yeah, like this guy deserves OP just because of the Q steal. I think like he was so good, and then overall, like he always holds his own. I never saw Emperor doing bad, you know. Like maybe he's not like the carry, top like AD carry, but he's always doing the right thing. Okay, don't watch that. But yeah, I mean, he's just great player overall. Like he's always doing what he has to do. He never gets caught randomly, and yeah, he's performing. You know, I would say that he's really good.
Yeah. He also just has what seems like a very natural laning phase. It's really weird to describe that. And he seems to click very well with Hybrid, because they can take kind of losing matchups and come out even in CS and not ever get in risk of getting dove, and that's actually very impressive overall. So the only thing you can fault him for is a couple aggressive flashes that he makes, but I love players that rather flash too aggressively rather than never at all. and he just performs pretty consistently for G2.
Performs consistently, but also when you told about Steelback more of cleaning up, I actually feel the same about a lot of AD carries now, even though in the beginning of the split we've said, you know, this is it for the AD carries who can carry alone. Who strays from that? Forgiven? Yeah.
Yeah, I think Forgiven, kinda, you know, like every game we try to play around him and he gets the lead, he never leaves the lead, like he kinda snowballs the game really hard and we can always rely on him. So I think that's the main difference, but also I think we are putting a lot of resources to him, even though not always he's getting the farm that he should. But at least in laning phase, we kind of focus on him a lot if we feel like we should. And I think every time like he gets the lead, he snowballs really hard, and it's just tough for opponents to actually do stuff against him. Yeah.
Yeah, funnily enough, it was said that now is the season for AD carries to shine, and then mid laners and top laners are like, I think AD carries are pretty good right now, so let's take up Corki and Lucian and Quinn as well.
Yeah, steal them away. Now, from watching Forgiven play and playing with him, he really has that like kind of snowball-centric playstyle. I wonder if it will ever be used against him, because it seems very hard to convince Forgiven to give up a wave, a farm, to maybe play safe and not go for the 50. You know, if I dodge the hook here, then I'm fine. But if I get hooked here, I may lose my life and the farm. But we'll have to see how that plays out. As for the Emperor point, I feel like Emperor is still a little more aggressive than Steelback. I mean, Steelback plays very fine in the back parts of the fight, but it feels that Emperor is just not afraid to just go ham in team fights. But it has cost him a couple of times, especially when teleports are involved.
Yeah, but I also feel like Forgiven is one of these players who has improved the most. Like, he was always the top-notch AD carry mechanically, but like in the past when I saw him play, I always saw him like farm the side lanes and he has like 400 CS in 30 minutes, but then the game is kind of just lost because it's a 4v5, right? But now he's actually like playing a lot more with the team and contributing more, and
the pro effect.
The pro effect, exactly. I mean, I think that we don't give him like enough farm sometimes just because he's trying to play with us a lot, but I think his decision making and overall like the coaching of Pro helps him a lot, and I think overall like we are kind of smart and he's smart, and if we work together we can achieve great things.
I mean, he also
what
had
a politician.
He also had a passage on a couple of different teams and in that Gambit. And when we look actually at the roster, we were bringing this up. A lot of the players that were on Gambit last split, like a Betsy, like a Cabochard, like a Forgiven, they're all doing well in their own right. Their teams might not always be winning like Roccat, but there seems to be something there. Yeah,
more importantly, so when we did the jungle gravity segment, we started looking at, okay, Betsy's doing well. Why? You know, because Airwax is spending 30% of his time in the early game next to him. Forgiven's doing well, we guess. Why? Because Vander and Jankos work together a lot for vision, or find the enemy jungler, or just make sure that the Forgiven lane is 2v2 where he can then abuse his superior laning ability. And then if in the top lane, Cabochard is still doing well because his jungler is still enabling him. Just wanted to bring up the discussion how these like three members that were on Gambit, a struggling team overall, now are shining individually because they're all getting the jungle pressure they deserve or need.
Yeah, I mean, in the last season it was a bit as well, like Diamond Prox was playing a lot around Cabochard as well, but I really think like Cabochard last season was also like the shining light for Gambit, but that was the best player in the team, but also because of the fact that he was being played around.
Yeah, I mean, right now we still see Shug just kind of camping Cabochard's lane. For example, yesterday he tried to focus more about like to play around Emperor, you know, and Hjarnan, and it worked pretty well for them. But even though like before that he was bot lane, he picked up like 3 waves, he was 6 super fast because of it, and then he used it. So yeah, I really like the Cabochard play with Shug. I think it's like impressive to watch, but I think it may cost the team a bit too much when it comes to like early and mid game, so he can't always be top, but as long as he is and they are winning, maybe yeah.
We might mention Cabochard a bit further on. We do have one more OP player though. It's also an AD carry. It's Reckless, and it might not seem like he's having the team in his back pocket a lot of times, but he is doing more and more. We know he has that shot calling role as well. We wanted to highlight him.
Yeah, Reckless, despite losing, did a lot of damage. It can't be understated. When I watched the end of the game, the damage graph was way out. It was like the fine Forgiven, but this time fine Reckless overall, because a lot of people can't put it in perspective. Like 1,000 damage a minute is absolutely insane. That's comparable to that Jinx AoE crit game we had at Worlds where we tracking, I don't know who it was, I think Ziv, no, not Ziv, but I think it was NL maybe, or either NL or Kramer that had that crazy game at Worlds. That was 1,000 damage per minute. That was what Reckless was pulling in these games. He just was doing so much damage with the Muramana that eventually went out of mana and he couldn't keep it up in the game anymore, but he, delivered at least.
Yeah, it's actually the most damage per minute that anyone's done for the entire week. So he's in really well. Despite that, Fnatic though 1-1. We do have to crown an MVP, and carrying the hardest above all else for us was Vitality's KaboShard. Not the biggest surprise. 21 KDA this week, 0 deaths as Fiora and Graves, making him a well-deserved MVP. I think it was a long time coming, obviously. What a good player.
I mean, for me, it's like kind of hard to say. I mean, okay, so he's a great player, I can tell you that, yes, but I wonder if he could perform on tanks as well as he performs on the carries. But I guess as long as Casting and maybe Shug can perform at the tanks, then it's all right, you know. The KaboShard is like the shining line in Vitality still, because if Shug goes there, then KaboShard will always get ahead no matter what. And he's just this kind of lane bully. He always wins lane. He always looks for the counter pick as well, and that's what helps him win the lane as well. So, I mean, he's a great player, you know, and there is a reason why people play around him.
I think you can compare in some aspects to Forgiven in the top lane, in the fact that he will always understand how to kind of abuse a matchup. If he has the winning matchup, you can bet your money in it that it will be abused, and eventually something will crack. Either the jungler will come and dive the top laner. I've spoken to some junglers that have dynamic queue with Cabo, and they're like, yeah, it's so easy to play with KaboShard. I just go top at level 3 or 4 and we dive the guy. As opposed to some other top laners that have well versatility in playstyle, but KaboShard doesn't seem to need it so far. But I do hope for playoffs when we reach like best of 5s that we see some versatility, because it just adds so much to your draft if your top laner can play every style.
Yeah, and especially in this draft also today, you would have thought that maybe Vitality would have needed a tank, but they had such a crisp game plan, and then going bottom, they get it rolling. But you can't always think that's going to happen. Or is that if they can keep coming out with those game plans, it is a sure deal?
I mean, Origin did leave it open, and
yeah,
if you look at KaboShard's champion pool, he had played Graves before, he had played similar champions where he can pressure like that, so it's a little bit of both. But we can't fault him for picking the right champion and then playing it to perfection.
Yeah.
I kind of do feel like it was like Vitality's plan to win the game early game, because if it does go like equal longer on, they kind of start losing. And I think in that game, like the most brilliant thing was like, do you think it was like consciously planned that they baited the TP of Soaz on bot lane? Because it always seemed like...
You mean on the top lane tower?
No, baited on the top lane tower. But like Shug was always going in and out like really aggressively. And then like instantly when the TP comes, like they back out so fast. Do you think they actually did it like planning, okay, he's going to TP, and when he does, then we all go bot lane and then we kill everyone?
I think it was more that, okay, so we try to bait the TP, and if they TP, like, we back out, and then when they saw the opportunity, they were just like, okay, let's TP and let's dive, you know, straight up, because, well, if he would TP, then he would be super behind top lane, and then he did not TP, he cancelled, so they just dived. So I don't think there was much that Origin could do in that situation. I think, like, maybe something early game would affect the game more, like, if they would play, like, something, like, kind of better early, you know?
Yeah, I just really like teams that have the ability to quickly communicate and back off of a teleport play. Say, okay, this isn't the time, we will get screwed over if we commit. But then right after that, use the teleport advantage. And that's what Vitality, I think, did really well. Just they understood lane pressure in all lanes. They understood the jungling pathing. They understood, like, especially the teleport plays, and that definitely put them a level above Origin.
We'll see if they can continue that 2 in a week for Vitality, because the EU LCS Spring rematches continue next week at 6 p.m. Central European Time, 9 a.m. Pacific, as Elements take on Origin. Later on, we'll have our match of the week as Fnatic faces off against G2. Nice matchup. I mean, obviously, Fnatic has to make a statement somewhere. Can they do it in this one, Cyanide?
I think it's possible, yeah. Like, G2's games weren't the most... No, wait, I'm talking out of my butt right now. But I do think Fnatic has been steadily improving, and if they keep it up, they might be able to take on G2 as long as they have like the good game plan going into the game and good picks. Instead
of the Banner of Command ZZ Rot Nautilus, I want to see the Banner of Command ZZ Rot Nasus coming out of Gamsu, just wrecking those tanks.
The
you know,
style.
If there's one lane, you know, that you can abuse, that you know will play a tank, it's Kikis, and then just get that Nasus go late game. Other than that, on an actual serious note, I think G2 look better.
I wasn't serious?
No. Oh. I think G2 look better, but Fnatic could make enough progression in a week to put up a good fight, because they have looked a little shaky at times. G2.
Yeah, Reckless also said in an interview that he thinks that Klei's map awareness is near that of Yellow Stars. I don't know if I'd say that after a week, but...
could become that, or like, could be close to that of Yellow Stars, but it might be in there, but yeah. We'll see.
We'll see. And you don't have to wait until Thursday for more LCS. Week 5 continues rather over in North America. Tomorrow at 9 p.m. Central European Time, noon Pacific, Echo Fox goes up against Renegades and Cloud9 will do battle against Team Liquid. And on Sunday, it is their match of the week between Energy and CLG. We'll be looking forward to those. But sadly, for us here in Europe, that is all from us here in Berlin. I'd like to extend a huge thank you to Jankos, Cyanide, and all the other pros that lent an analytical eye and some fantastic one-liners for Jungle Week. And of course, to all of you guys for tuning in. Until next time, we'll catch you on the Rift.
All right.
All right.
GG.